This is interesting. It just so happens that this episode of my new series, Used in Anger, is sponsored by Rotolight. I hadn't intended any of the episodes to be sponsored, but it actually makes sense, hold that thought, and the folks at Rotolight are only going to realize this is what they've sponsored when they see it for the first time, which just happens to be precisely when you see it because they had no input to it, nor were they given an early peek. We never discussed concepts either. They simply said, in effect, do your thing. And I appreciate that. So, on to the series opening you may have already seen in episode 1, which was about audio. I encourage you to check out that one as well. I recently produced an interview for which I was both the one-man production team behind the camera and the interviewer in front of the camera. Because I knew this would be a high-stress situation, the number of things that could go wrong and the limited number of ways I might mitigate those risks while being in front of the camera in real time were daunting. I took a belt and braces approach to its planning and execution. First, I decided on a 3-camera setup so that if anything went wrong with one, I'd still be able to work with footage from the other 2. And, of course, not for nothing, I also felt this would offer the highest production values. Second, I rented 2 camera lens kits identical to the kit we own and use every week here in the Batcave. A, to minimize time spent setting up, and B, to minimize time spent working in post, trying to match colors, etc., etc. Third, I bought 6 new 64GB cards, formatted them and tested them days before the shoot in each camera. Fourth, I set up each camera for simultaneous recording. Fifth, I used 2 sets of lav mics, 1 wireless system, 1 wired body pack system, so that if one failed or we got interference, we'd have backup. And sixth, I used 2 identical and powerful bicolor lights with battery backup so that I could easily match ambient lighting, possibly get by with one bounced into the ceiling if something went wrong with either one. You know where this is going, right? Hey everybody, I'm Hugh Brownstone for 3 Blind Men and an Elephant, and welcome, as I said moments ago, to episode 2 in a new occasional series I'm calling Used in Anger. If you're not familiar with this British phrase, it means for real, in the heat of battle, if you will. I think that's actually where it came from, rather than in tests or drills. Because as it turns out, which should surprise absolutely no one, working under deadline and deliverable pressure has a way of forcing issues to the surface rather quickly. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about lighting. Because, as it turns out, I used a pair of Rotolight's AEOS 2 LED panels for that interview, call it a calculated risk since this would be the first time I'd used them in anger, hold that thought. And I intended to use the newest Neo 3 Pro for flash photography on the street, hold that thought too. Here's what too many of us don't understand about the latest and greatest dynamic range specs for the latest and greatest cameras, especially when it comes to videos. The first rule for video in my book is lighting a scene to get as close to base ISO as possible, because this is where one obtains the greatest dynamic range and lowest noise. Put differently, proper lighting eliminates dynamic range and noise as issues and is the best way to match the aesthetic of the scene to the intent and emotion of the scene. This is why bringing your own set of lights to an interview is worth the schlep. Relying solely on ever-changing ambient light, even relying on better controlled artificial lighting of a modern corporate office, is way too much of a crapshoot. Of course, an interview is only one use case. There are many use cases where this kind of control is just not possible. It is also true that light modifiers and positioning play roles equally as critical as the lights themselves, and there are other factors, especially a function of location like ceiling height, for example, that will impact one's choices and freedom to execute. So, you could certainly argue that using these lights in anger at an interview would not be a particularly difficult use case. Fair enough, but no less stressful for me personally. The more interesting question, really, is this. Why on earth would I bring lighting I'd never used in anger, especially since my go-to kit for interviews for years, a pair of daylight balanced Aperture LS 1/2 Ws, had had zero problems? Good question. The short answer is to see if I could reduce schlepping and futzing. Not only is Rotolight's finally released app the best lighting control app I've ever seen from functional and user experience perspectives, not only is it an injustice to call the AEOS 2's output simply bicolor, it is so much more than that, but the pair of AEOS 2s with diffuser domes, power bricks and cables, V-mount batteries, and ball heads fit perfectly in the Rotolight bag, was fairly maneuverable and not too heavy, and reduced by half the number of stands I usually carry, separately in either event. In comparison, the usual Aperture LED kit consists of said LS half Ws along with 4 light stands, one for each light plus one for each of the 2 circular diffusers I also bring with me, as well as a pair of arms to support and position them. Now, I'll put a link in the Show More section below this video to my first look at the bicolor AEOS 2s so you can see why I found them an attractive proposition, and I can just cut to the chase, which is this. It's not what you thought. The Rotolights were the only piece of gear during that interview, other than the lenses, that didn't give me problems. Yay! The AEOS 2s just plain worked. Quick to set up and take down, easy to dial in power and color temperature, easy to position, and quiet. End of story. Might the story have been different if I'd been in an exhibition space, say, with 20-foot ceilings? Absolutely. Because in this instance, I bounced both lights into the ceiling. Are there other, far less expensive ways to light that might have given me the same end result, or close enough, on video? Yes. More expensive ways? Yeah, that too. Especially very high-end LED panels. For many of us, however, the question is about that lower end, so I'd tell you this. I don't know of any chip-on-board, that is COB, LED system as elegant or flexible as the Rotolights, but I think it fair to say that with the advent of some really good, ever higher quality, ever more powerful, yet, interestingly enough, less aggressively priced than previously bicolor COB monolights, and the ubiquitous Bowens mount with which so many of them are equipped, we do have options. But as a one-man band behind the camera and simultaneously one of 2 people in front of the camera, as I also said earlier, and with so much else going on in my life right now, the AEOS 2s made my life easier, and that counts for a lot. The Neo 3 is a somewhat different story. Same app, same functionality, same build quality, same manual of arms, but with less power because it is much smaller and lighter. My intent had been to use it during our photography workshops out on the streets of New York at night. But there were more issues here. 1. I intended to use it off camera with Claudia operating as a human C-stand. Super lightweight, powerful, adjustable, it made a whole lot of sense. This meant, 2, I'd need a wireless flash trigger for it. The good news is that I had a pair of Elinchrom flash triggers, one for Panasonic and one for Sony, and both the Neo 3 and AEOS 2 have built-in receivers for them. But 3, the bad news is that my go-to for street photography is my Leica SL2, and Leica is notoriously, call it, flash unconcerned, so I'd need to use a different camera. Fortunately, I had a Sony a7 IV and Panasonic Lumix S1R, and I opted for the higher resolution Panasonic. 4, the good news is that the flash trigger worked beautifully with the Neo 3, and the flexibility of the unit for flash is really quite extraordinary, beginning with essentially 0 lag between shots, quickly moving to a 16.7 million color palette, and a whole lot more. More good news. 5, the NP-style battery instead of the previous generation of AA's made things a lot easier and a lot less anxiety-inducing. But 6, the worst news, which I hadn't understood when I'd first learned about these next-generation lights, is this. The Rotolights work as flash units only in manual mode. They don't work as TTL units. 7, however, more good news. I figured this out beforehand. On the other hand, 8, more bad news. I really wanted TTL for my first set of experiments, graduating to manual if necessary as I evaluated how well TTL would work in the usually fast-paced, multivariate environment of the street. So, 9, I brought the Neo 3 out one night in a small shoulder bag. Again, it's very small and lightweight for what it is, with actually a much larger diffuser area than something like the Profoto A1 or Godox V1 without modifiers, but 10, it stayed in the bag the entire time. The Neo 3 is simply not a substitute for TTL flash. All of which leaves us where precisely? Well, here. First, I used the big boys, the AEOS 2s, in this story in anger, and they performed. Frankly, based on my first look experience, I expected they would, and I wasn't disappointed. I would absolutely use them again, so it is easy for me, truly, to recommend that you take a close look at them if your use cases and budget suggest it makes sense. But I would also be mindful, as I mentioned, about the specifics of your shoot, and if faced with, again, high ceilings, for example, or greater distances between the lights and the on-screen talent, I'd test them at max power at the right color temperature with and without other diffusers, which might eliminate one of the AEOS 2's most compelling advantages. Then again, Rotolight has a new electronic variable diffuser I haven't had in hand, so maybe not. Second, I think it critical to understand what the Neo 3 in particular is and is not, and go from there. As a compact, beautifully designed, and joy-to-use RGB LED with exceptional color accuracy and flexibility? Absolutely. As a hair light, rim light, or fill light in continuous mode, or when shooting with flash manually? An RGB FX light with spectacular range? Again, absolutely. A fill light at night on the streets of New York? Again, absolutely, especially if they are in close. As a TTL flash for key or fill? Not possible. From farther distances in either case? Wrong tool. All of which in the end brings us to the third point, and the reason Rotolight sponsored this video, the announcement of new Pro versions of both the AEOS 2 and Neo 3. They're being crowdfunded once again, and with just a few days left, the campaign is already more than 700% over goal, so bravo Rotolight. What makes these versions different? Higher output up to 25%, new presets and effects, new additional compatibility with Profoto and Godox triggers, and more. But I'll let Rotolight CEO Rod Aaron Gammons give you the full deets in this video, including discounts between 20 and 30% to launch price once they hit the market. I say, check them out, and let me know what you think in the comments section below.
If you already like the Neo 3 and the AEOS 2, you are going to absolutely love these.
I think you have to see it to believe it.
Rotolight is a pioneering British technology company that specializes in making advanced LED lighting products for portrait photographers, weddings, events, as well as leading filmmakers and directors of photography all around the world. Last year, we launched the Rotolight Neo 3 and AEOS 2, which went on to become the most successful photography and video LED light ever launched on the Kickstarter platform. Since their launch, the Neo 3 and the AEOS 2 have won a number of industry plaudits from customers and press alike, including Digital Camera's Best LED Panel of 2022 and Amateur Photographer's Best LED Light of the Year. We're delighted today to announce that we're back with the brand new campaign for the Neo 3 Pro and AEOS 2 Pro. Built in the UK to aerospace standards, the new Pro editions feature signature solid aluminium dials and custom metallic red handles for premium quality that's designed to last. Whilst the Neo 3 and AEOS 2 were already the brightest lights in their class, the new Pro editions add 25% more output to give you even more power whenever you need it. The next generation of Rotolight products that we're announcing here today are the ultimate all-in-one lights for photographers and filmmakers, providing the world's first RGBW high-speed sync flash with zero recycle time. Now featuring built-in Godox, Profoto, and Electron flash receivers, these lights provide incredible flexibility for photographers on the go. Select from any color temperature, any one of 16.7 million colors, or 2,500 digital gels for unlimited creative possibilities. The Pro editions feature brand new Master of Light preset packs, including over 100 exclusive built-in presets for HSI settings, gel settings, and special effects from some of the world's leading photographers, as well as Emmy-winning filmmakers and directors of photography. Both of these products feature a world-first, intuitive, fast and responsive touchscreen display that saves you time on set. With our brand new iOS and Android app, easily adjust color, special effects, gels, flash settings, and much more right from the palm of your hand. Introducing True Aperture Dimming. Calculate and display the light output as an f-stop at any given ISO, shutter speed, and distance, eliminating the need for a light meter. The Neo 3 and EOS 2 have been used by leading photographers around the world to capture incredible results.
As soon as I saw the light that they had on my subjects and how that color dropped off on the skin, it was immediately obvious to me that it was definitely going to make my life a lot easier. And again, that comes down to quality of light.
So guys, I always get asked, can you use the Neo 3s outdoors? And look at this, I've got 3 Neo 3 Pros outdoors, and I thought where better to go than on a rooftop. So we're right in the middle, no shadows, no shade. Look at this, and we're on 12/50th of a second, 1.4 and base ISO over 100, and it's not missing a beat. This is what you call pro, guys.
As creatives, we're always looking for that all-in-one lighting solution. These Pro version lights from Rotolight are the closest thing I found to achieving that. They're the most feature-rich, durable, and easy-to-use Rotolights that I've ever used. So if you're looking for an all-in-one combo that will help you get the majority of your photography and video work done, look no further than the Neo 3 and EOS 2 Pro version lights, my friends. You won't regret it.
The lights have also been used by leading filmmakers across the globe, including Denson Baker on feature films such as The Color Room, starring Bridgerton's Phoebe Denver, as well as major TV shows for the BBC and ITV. It's always inspiring for us to see the incredible images the Rotolight community create with these products. Following the incredible support of our backers from the last campaign, we're delighted to be back with our latest innovations, offering a fantastic opportunity for filmmakers and photographers to be the first in the world to own these products before anyone else. So back us today. We can't wait to see what you're going to create.